in the garden, and this is,
Sean Briscoe.
yes, Sean Briscoe. And Sean is an old friend of mine who is a political consultant. He's also my son, so he's a real old friend. And he was on with Andre this week and was quite the hit. And since Scott couldn't come play with me this morning, I asked Sean if he'd like to come on and answer your questions. And y'all have been really sweet. And this is from, thank you, Gigi. Gigi lives in New York. And she's asking if, and this is the last thing we're going to say about the shooting last night. Mm-hmm. And there's a banner at the bottom. Sean and I discussed this last night when it happened, and our feelings kind of, it takes 48 hours for any of the news to really know where it's going, no matter how clear cut it is. And when it's an anonymous shooting, which is not anonymous now, but was, it's even more. So, yes, we would like to think a brainless act would stop them from, make them think differently about gun control. But I don't even think when they shoot at each other they care.
Yeah, in my opinion, all of those shootings are brainless acts. Yeah, that's, I mean, but to just go into the political side of it, which is what we're here to talk about, mm-hmm. I'm more than happy to talk about the Second Amendment. Mm-hmm. And how it's been defined by our Supreme Court is that we're our own militia, effectively, each and every one of us, which is not at all how the Founding Fathers set it up. It was originally there to be able to pull together a group of men who've got armaments in case the British or the French or Portuguese or anybody else decided to try and come in and take the 13 colonies. So after the end, after the independence was declared and everything, they were mostly worried about being invaded by yet another European superpower, which is literally what happened if you go read history all the time, everywhere, all at once. So you just get rid of one and you'd have another one coming in. So the whole Second Amendment argument is, and quite honestly, I'd be like, sure, everyone can have a gun. I'm Texan. I know how to use guns. I was in Boy Scouts in Texas. Boy Scouts in Texas in the 80s was almost paramilitary camp. We did, and Nancy, I don't even know if you know this, but we had a rifle camp every quarter. So every 3 months for years. But these are all really well-trained, certified individuals that were teaching us, and it was an incredibly safe environment. No one was ever hurt. So I'm not an NRA member because I don't like, working with organizations that
kill children.
Yeah, I mean, let's be clear. The NRA for decades was a organization that helped funnel money from foreign entities into politics.
Yeah.
When I'd be running state house seats,
this is for entertainment purposes only.
Entertainment purposes only. When I would be running state house seats in Texas, we'd get an NRA questionnaire. And since I worked with Democrats and progressives, they were very, very proud of their D rating. Mm-hmm. And I think they came out with an F rating later on, but I don't know. But they were very proud of that D rating. And the questions read just like you think they would. But the National Rifle Association was there to pull resources into right-leaning politics, and they worked from the ground up. I mean, they were giving money in city council races and state house races, state senate races, and of course the federal stuff, which is what everyone actually reads about. I can truly say none of the campaigns I've worked on, to my knowledge, ever got a dime from the NRA. We were definitely not in their.
No, they were not an equal opportunity giver of money.
No, I mean, also keep in mind, most of my candidates have been, save but a few, have been minorities in some form or fashion, whether it be LGBTQ or Hispanic or African American. every gender. So you can't. So yeah, my group, my candidates weren't exactly top of their list of people to go and try and influence. But and the Second Amendment's been weaponized, ironically, and the Supreme Court has a lot to do with that.
Yeah,
and
what we do in the next election has a lot to do with the Supreme Court. But Sean doesn't live with me. He doesn't live around me. He just hears about all the weird things I do. So what I did was I posted that we're going to have the show today, Sean, and I asked people to ask questions. And these are the questions we got, and we're going to start with them because they were smart enough to put it in early. And Doral, Florida is known as Swindlerville. And it's weird you asked this because Sean works in Florida occasionally.
I have worked in Florida. I was there
and you may be there again soon, right?
Yeah, it's possible.
Okay. Anyway, do you know anything about Doral?
Honestly, I don't. It's not I don't do policy or platform in Florida. Most of the work I've done in Florida is campaign related. That's kind of what I do. I do campaigns. So I can talk about knocking on doors in the 7 largest counties in Florida and some of the difficulties that come with that. I can talk about the 2022 election quite a bit and why that ticket wasn't probably the best ticket for Florida. And I have hard data on all that. We knocked on over 800,000 doors and asked about 12 questions per door and talked to 200,000 people. So if you do 200,000 times 12, that's how many questions we asked. So yeah, I know a lot about Florida. I know exactly what the targeted universe that we were looking at thinks. And but that's kind of where my information stops. I don't know much about airports or.
Actually, this gives us a chance to talk. There's different layers of government. And Sean's been working primarily on federal races in the last.
Some state house stuff too, but yeah, but honestly, it's political action committees kind of look at what races they don't coordinate with because that's against the law, but the races that they want to help because of their policies and platforms. So they'll look at a state house seat and a state senate seat and a congressional seat, where they overlap and which counties, and because gerrymandering is definitely a thing, and they'll see where those overlap, and then they'll concentrate the canvassing in those areas. So that's so I'll have. Oh my God, we targeted. Oh man, I don't want to get this wrong, but over 20 races in 2022. And I think it's more than that. I have to go back to my notes. It's getting now a few years later. And anyone who does this business, if you tried to keep everything in your head, I've been doing this since 1998. There's just no way. There's some things you don't forget. Like I can almost tell you the metrics that we had in Obama in 2008 in Dallas County, but outside that, the numbers start to squish together. That's why I take notes actually, so I can go back and go, oh, that's right. So, but that's sorry, I don't do the freight airports or.
Well, no, what I was going to say is you wouldn't that kind of thing, freight and airports and what's going on around them and the infrastructure around them. That's almost exclusively the city of Doral. So that's an issue that if it hurts your heart, Travels, you need to get involved. If you live near there and it bugs you, that's where you get in your city council races and your county commissioner races and those kinds of things.
Right.
And then
that's where the gears are hitting on those things, for sure.
Yeah, and that's where,
I could talk about municipal stuff in Dallas all day.
Oh yeah, we can tell you all about Dallas County. That's why we have so much trouble living here. Puka Rabbit, is there anything or things that you would like to see Biden or Harris do or message in the remaining months till November? Row your boat.
Yeah, row all day. It's Dobbs. If I'm going to tell you what I told some people who asked me this question on a professional level. what would I do if I could control the targeting for their field program?
Mm-hmm.
I'd build a huge field program. We would knock on every door that has a registered woman behind it, whether they vote or not. I'd clear out all the hard R's. I don't want to abuse my canvassers. But if they've registered to vote in the last 24 months, they would definitely be on my list, regardless of voter history.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would target all families that are 30-something and anyone with a daughter. That's
Mm-hmm.
not a hard R. And then I would go after that universe. And I would hit it 4 times in every urban and suburban county in this country.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would do. And you'll just annihilate the Republican Party. If you did that in Texas, in the 18 counties it takes to win in Texas, you would destroy the Republican Party. There'd be nothing left, electorally speaking. There'd be nothing left. It's also the program I just outlined is multiple billions of dollars. So,
Or you could go call your local party and see if there's some way you can go help them canvass.
Absolutely. Starting your own precinct. I always tell people starting a precinct. It's what I was talking about on the other channel. The most powerful phrase you have, and the most powerful phrase in politics, in my opinion, is "Hello, I am your neighbor." If you want to really make a change in your community, go knock on doors in your precinct, because your kids will go to the same schools their kids do, or they play in the same parks, or you go to the same grocery stores, or you also have the same traffic problems, or the same air quality problems, or water problems, or power problems. All the stuff, it's all regional. So you'll have a frame of reference to relate to another person, even if you don't know them, because I guarantee you they're running into the same stuff that you are every time. I mean, one of the things I like to do with my candidates is I like to go canvass their precinct with them. Also, here's another little thing that I do with my candidates regarding the field program and knocking on your own precinct. It's going to be the friendliest precinct, as long as you're not an incumbent. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But that precinct is going to be something you're very comfortable with. You'll know the streets. Your odds are you're going to run into somebody you know, especially if you've lived there quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
You'll recognize somebody, PTA, whatever. And so I always tell my candidate, listen, we're going to go canvass. This is the friendliest precinct you're going to canvass in this entire cycle. So this is our opportunity to practice your stump speech.
Mm-hmm.
Every door is a rehearsal. And we can fine tune, come up with language you're comfortable with, that sounds natural coming from you. And then we'll work with that. And we'll work with them as almost like a debate coach, which I've also done.
Mm-hmm.
And it's cold calling, it's cold knocking is really what I call it.
Mm-hmm.
And they get better. And then phone time is also another opportunity to practice your stump and your 30-second pitch and all that jazz. And to find out what issues work, because we're asking questions like, what's important to you? And we put that down, and that goes into a spreadsheet, and then we analyze that and say, you know what? People really, really hate that pothole. I mean, it's going to be, and it's always the weirdest things. Like there's a highway down in Travis County that was insanely dangerous. And the people on that road they have their kids are growing up and they're going to start driving. Their biggest issue was they didn't want their kids driving on the road in front of their house because the speed limit was garbage and no one even abided by it anyway. And I don't know if anyone's been in the western part of Travis County, but the roads just do this. And this was no different. And we realized that just going up there when we were in those areas and talk about road safety, we got massive applause.
Mm-hmm.
Because people don't want their kids to die driving home from school. I mean, real fundamental.
This is why the kind of work Sean does, which is on the ground work is so important. I used to always tell my candidates, we put you out going door to door for 2 weeks, and you're going to have your entire campaign for the whole run. Because within 2 weeks, if we, provided we haven't picked one neighborhood with one giant gripe, you're going to have all the issues you're going to need to hear about to move along and to get on with what you need to get on with. So I'm going to go to some of our questions from our people. There's one here. This is, my own gut feeling about this is it's going nowhere because it's gun control and you'd have to deal with Republicans. But there's talk of Democrats putting up a bill using Rumpus's name for gun control. How do you see that playing out?
I'm going to tell you right now, the Second Amendment's real strong. They don't play with that. The amount of money and just it's a dog whistle for those guys. So hard. You'll even lose some Democrats in Texas on it. Honestly, in my opinion, the best way to go about that is to require insurance.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I would. That's the angle I would take.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge and extremely well-funded insurance lobby, as I'm sure we're all aware.
Mm-hmm.
They would love to have a new market, and they have billions of dollars to throw at that.
Mm-hmm.
And you're less likely to have an 18-year-old with an AR-15 that's unemployed and yada yada. If he's got to pay $2,000 a year for insurance for that weapon, you still have the right to have that weapon. No one's taking away your right to have that weapon, but you have to have that weapon insured. Otherwise, you can't have it because there's a liability involved in that, and we can see that through everything that we have. I mean, it costs money to have ID to vote.
Mm-hmm.
So that is like an insurance policy on voting. And voting is definitely in the Constitution. So you're going to tell me that we can't identify some liability in gun control? It kills, and Biden said it just the other day, more children die from guns than anything else in this country.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And they were so afraid of that number that they wouldn't even let us do research on that fact until, like 5-6 years ago.
They wouldn't let the FBI collect information on shootings.
Right. Because they understand the liability issue. The gun lobby's worst nightmare is the insurance lobby.
And yet no arms are allowed in their own convention in Detroit.
Right. And what's interesting about that is that's a city ordinance. They probably have nothing to do with it.
Mm-hmm.
But the irony is definitely there.
No, it's in their thing. It's
sure,
in their,
because it's a city ordinance and they're using that venue. We've used venues before. That's how it's played out.
In 3 shifting veils. In Florida, we learned how to handle rifles. I already knew because my grandpa was a collector and my father had guns. Y'all are in a different world. My father came from Canada and he must have learned to shoot when he was up there. I know he had to shoot a gun in World War II, even though he was a doctor and never left Canada.
He was a medic in the Canadian Army, so they tend to be in the where it's not so great.
He almost got sent to Germany. I mean, to the war, but my mother got to know the commander's wife and said, "I'm about to have a baby," which was my older brother. And she said, "I really would like Larry here when the baby was born." And that was the last plane load of doctors they sent over, and only 3 of them came back.
Wow.
So, okay. Project 25 says they plan to break down the foundation of the country upon which we're founded and start their own way. This is true. Project 2025. There's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it's bad. I've read it. It's really long, and it's so it gave me nightmares. I'm not gonna lie. My subconscious processed it in a way I wasn't really. I mean, I've been doing this a long time, But just seeing it all written out, all the things I've been fighting against forever, written out are in incredible detail, well articulated, gave me nightmares. And Don, I was trying to remember if there's ever anything that I'd ever read that did that before, and there was. When I first started working in politics, I was actually a policy analyst coming out of college, and the area that I was working in, the legislative member I worked for, well, because of nuclear weapons tests in the late 40s and 50s, his area had been radioactively contaminated.
Yeah, you worked in Guam. You need to explain this.
Oh, yeah, okay. So
where the hell?
Yeah, Guam is 1,200 miles downwind from the Bikini Atoll, where they detonated all these weapons and everything. And some of them were strong enough to eject nuclear debris into over 11 miles high, which is into the jet stream. And then the jet stream brought it over, and then, through rain and various other, also the boats that were over there and the planes that flew through it all landed on Guam, and they got washed off and ended up in the water cycle. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff. I could do a whole show just on that. It's a good idea, actually. I might. So anyway, I had to read all the affidavits from the radiologists and the military people and the retired military, because some of that stuff didn't really come out until the 70s and 80s. And it was only because of the Sunshine Act that Clinton passed that we even were able to see a lot of the affidavits that have been classified. So you just read enough of that stuff, and knowing that, growing up on Guam, a lot of my friends' relatives, like, it was like normal for your friend's uncle to have cancer.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a normal thing. Like, that wasn't like, oh man, I can't believe it. They're like, oh, how's he doing? It's not that you can't believe it, because your other three friends also have an uncle with cancer. It's not, I can't believe it. It's how's he doing? Yeah. So that gave me nightmares. So yeah, the 2025 is really, really bad. And it's the institutional damage they want to do. And for them, it's not damage. For them, it's fixing. But like recategorizing 50,000 federal employees as a category F, that whole thing where they can, right now, when a new administration comes in, they basically change out about 5,000 individuals. And that's like everything from just all the way down.
All the services that we rely on that are part of our federal government. Right?
But it's not the person who draws the lines for the hurricanes in NOAA. It's not the person.
They want to get rid of NOAA.
Oh yeah, they want to get rid of NOAA.
For all of you along the coastline, they want to get rid of NOAA, so you will have no idea that storm's coming.
But that's not just okay. So yeah, we can talk about NOAA. That's a kind of an easy one because it affects everyone. It's real easy to draw a line. Who uses NOAA? Okay. Every airplane in the air, and commercial airplane, whether it be passenger or shipping, uses NOAA. Like daily, like every minute. All of our transportation uses NOAA globally. Now, this is a global monitoring system. It's not that we just monitor around the United States. We monitor everything globally. All right. So when an ice shelf breaks off and gets into the shipping lanes, our ships know about it because of NOAA. Storm trends, hurricanes, tornadoes. Those of you in Oklahoma, Mississippi, Alabama, those big bright red states, Texas. Without NOAA, you don't know who and where your tornadoes are coming from. If you're thinking, oh, I just turn on channel 8 or whatever and I'll see it. No. Where do you think they get their data? Your weatherman gets his data from NOAA. I actually go on the NOAA website when I plan my field programs for knocking on doors, because it's kind of like going to the AP as far as news goes, but for the weather. It's where everyone else gets their information. Why would I bother going through a filter when I can go to the source? NOAA is the source. they want to get rid of it. And the reason they want to get rid of it is because the Republican Party is owned and operated subsidiary of the oil industry and anyone who's adding to global warming. And NOAA monitors global warming. So if you don't think just that one thing, never mind Medicaid, Medicare, the healthcare system, all the regulations to keep the water clean, the air breathable, never mind all that. People will die because of tornadoes and hurricanes. People will die because their boat ran into an iceberg. You know, that's going to happen without NOAA. Guaranteed, 100%. Don't even have to. The math is very, very simple. And that's just one of 28 things they want to do. You know, they want to make it illegal to have any kind of contraception nationally.
Mm-hmm.
That's absolutely something that's on the board. They want to. Sorry, I've got my little notes here. There you are. I hate when I turn the news on. They want to. They want to make sure that they call it infusing Christianity in our federal government. Basically, it's a litmus test. If you want to get hired by the federal government, you better be a Christian. And I guarantee you, it's not. I'm a Christian, and I guarantee you, it's not me that they want. They want a very, very specific type of Christian, of which I know I am not. Because I'm a Unitarian Universalist. I'm probably the furthest left-wing Christian you can really get. They want to. They want to remove the legal protections against discrimination. The claims based on sexual orientation and gender identity. That means anyone in the LGBTQ community, once they've made your marriage illegal, which is the other thing they want to do, they can have you removed from your job, and there's nothing you can do about that.
Right.
They want to, but while they're removing legal protections for minorities and LGBTQ, they want to beef up protections against anti-white racism. So they want protections, but they don't want to give anyone else protections.
Well, this all kind of goes back to something Sean and I discussed, and if you look in the information below this show, you'll find it. I was looking up to, because I thought we talked about the dirty tricks, or the thing they're pulling on Biden. He's too old, and all this other crap that they keep pulling up and getting people to cooperate with. They did the same thing to Edmund Muskie. It was in 1972. I mean, that was 60 years ago.
Hey, what about her emails? That just happened,
right? And
Obama had a bad debate, and they said, "Oh, how can he possibly represent America? He's from Africa or Kenya or wherever the hell they were saying."
Well, I know, but this
recycle.
And following the Edmund Muskie thing, I looked up Nixon's dirty tricks. And for those of you who don't know this name, you should get to know it. His name was Lee Atwater, and he was the one who worked with Nixon, and he was a Southerner. And he said, "We're going to find a way to take over without having to speak to our own kind using the N-word." So they came up with a series of images and ideas that meant they didn't have to scream the N-word, but all they had to do was mention it. It sounded like they were really concerned about economics. Anyway, the thing in the article from The Nation was an old tape that was taped before Lee Atwater died in the 1990s. And right before he died, I remember seeing the show. He did a TV show. He did an interview, and he said how he was sorry about how he'd helped them break America. And he was coming to see Jesus sooner than he thought, and he was having real second thoughts. But this audio tape is when he was at his height of his power, and you can hear him talk about all the things that's in 2025, all the plans and the ways they did things, and the kind of trick they pulled on Edmund Muskie. They published a letter in New Hampshire that just really took Muskie and his wife apart, And Muskie got up and he was so upset he cried about it in the news conference. And that killed his chance to run for president, because we can't have a man that would be so upset about something he'd cry. And the reason the Republicans did it, they admitted later, was they feared Muskie would beat Nixon more than anyone else, so they had to get him out of the race. This is an old game they play, and the Democrats fall for it every time. Not this time, I hope, thank God. And, and now you find out there's all sorts of personal reasons why celebrities wrote articles against Biden and stuff. And I mean, I don't understand what's in their head, but I don't want to go see a movie that's directed by Joe Biden. And I don't want to live in a country and a government that's read by a bunch of movie directors. And I used to be in broadcast film. I've met a ton of them. And I wouldn't want them running things either. So we just need to get our panties out of a wad and go become volunteers. And that's, let's see. This is a question we got about you, Sean. Sean has a channel.
My channel's being built out right now. I'll make sure that anyone who's asked for it will get it.
And I have Sean's email, so you can write him. And if you do that, he will keep you on a list.
Absolutely.
And he will let you know.
Yeah.
And here's one. This is from Gino. When will the Dems, Congress people, get in line behind Biden?
Well, so wait a second, real quick. Let's talk about who's not behind Biden.
Mm-hmm.
All right. There are 200 members of the Democratic caucus in the legislative branch, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's senators and congressmen and women.
Mm-hmm.
There's 20 out of 200, 10%. So one way to read that is 90% of the Democrats are already behind and in line with Biden. And there's 10% that aren't. And anyone who's ever worked with Democrats, I call that a win.
Oh, yeah, that's really good.
It's like herding cats, people. I mean, there's an old saying that Republicans fall in line and Democrats fall in love. Also, I like to look at the demographic of who isn't backing Biden. And it's a whole bunch of old dudes who look like me. And a woman who is white. And if you go back and look at the last, all the way even back to Obama's administration, some of them may or may not have gotten a committee appointment they wanted, or they were up for VP and didn't get that, and Kamala got that, or there's always something. It's DC, guys. It's like high school, but with billions of dollars. And you got to understand that they're also all human.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not like they're super heroes or anything. They're just normal human beings reacting in normal human ways. And when you feel dissed, and whether real or imaginary, and you see blood in the water, thanks to one bad debate.
Mm-hmm.
So he's tied with Obama now. You get 10%. I know the follow-up question, that's like, well, what about the donors? If you think the Democratic Party is fickle, donors are even more.
Mm-hmm.
So also they'll come around because they're reading the same stuff in 2025 that I'm reading.
Mm-hmm.
And they're all millionaires and stuff, but they're going to have to come around because there's no real other choice here.
That's right.
You've got, for entertainment purposes, totally crazy party, or a party that, doesn't want the earth to consume itself and get everyone killed. And those are your choices. So I'm kind of leaning towards the living, on this whole equation.
And when a candidate's running, they need to run on their own values. I mean, they know the people where they live. When I was working for an African American candidate who was running in a primary in a congressional race at the time that Obama approved gay marriage. And this guy just came in the office and he went nuts. It's not that he didn't like gay marriage or any of that, but the black churches were so anti-gay. They really, they were just flat anti-gay.
African American communities have a complicated relationship with LGBTQ.
Yes, it's a very complex world. And he came in, he said, he's killing me. I said, you need to go talk to the pastors and say, that what's Obama's doing, this is what I believe. But I said, I think you're going to find when you get in there, those pastors are going to be relieved because now it's not on them to hold that ship afloat. And they can get to where there are people who have more in common with them. And he found out that was right. But these people, if Biden goes down, I'm going to go down. Why? Look at how horrible Trump was, and that many more Democrats got elected. So people do look at each. I really don't like it when candidates say, well, I'm going to fail because they're failing. Unless, of course, it's in the state of Texas where Abbott can fix all the books and screw with the votes, but different thing altogether. And speaking of which, we've got another question. Which states look possible to turn blue? How much does the women and young people have towards its goal?
Oh, it's everything. That's the easiest one. As far as how much of the women and young people, it's everything. It's literally the vote. Mm-hmm. Those people, regardless of color, young people and women, mm-hmm. will decide who their next president is if they go and vote and bring a friend. Mm-hmm. And that's easy. Now, which states? Well, let's look at what's happened. So nothing happens in a bubble. I actually talked a little bit about this in the other channel. Nothing happens in a bubble, right? Let's just look, because I look at trending data and I look at elections, like actual elections. It's the best poll because it's the only one that matters. Mm-hmm. So what have we done? Democrats statewide in various different states. Well, as far as special elections go, we're 13 for 13. We mm-hmm. haven't lost one special election since Dobbs. Not one. And not one that was like big. Mm-hmm. We're 13 for 13. And we've won statewide in Wisconsin and Michigan. We've flipped state Supreme Courts. We've won governorships. We flipped the legislature in Virginia so they could mitigate the damage that governor was doing. Mm-hmm. These are not small things. Also, they didn't happen. Yes, a lot of work went in there. We had to remind everyone, hey, this is early voting and election day is here. That's really what canvassing does. Mm-hmm. And we in Virginia, we concentrated on 5 state house seats that were never on anyone's radar. But some polling they did said, hey, there might be something here. So we went out, we hit those 5 state house seats hard, and we won all but one. So we were 80% for that targeted universe.
But you didn't go in till 2 months before the election.
Yeah. We were really tight to the game. But also that one we lost by around 800 votes, and it was a state house seat. And when I go back in the data, there were 9,000 doors we couldn't reach because they're gated communities, which is one of the problems that canvassing has. We can't go into gated communities or high density residential very easily. There are ways to do it, but the cost is usually so much and there's such a larger universe that you can reach out to. Most campaigns just say, okay, that's just a universe that we can't go to. But we have this other chunk. We're going to go after that.
If somebody listening to this show happens to live in a gated community, read your rules. If you invite them in as your guest, then they can canvass.
Right.
And that's how one thing we did with Obama, we got into a lot of communities because
the way we did with Obama, because high density residential is also apartment complexes that have gates and entranceways and stuff, where you need a code to get in and all that jazz, which is most of them nowadays. So we realized that in apartment complexes, you really only usually get one parking spot. Well, because of cost of living in Austin or Dallas or any other major metropolitan area, normally you got two people with two incomes living in the same place. Not always, but enough. So we had some Post-its printed up, and we went around all the cars that were outside the gate and just put a Post-it on their windshield saying, "Hi, this is Obama Dallas. Here's a phone number. Here's an email. Please contact us if you're willing to canvass your apartment complex. We have to have somebody who actually lives there so that they can get permission and do voter education." And lo and behold, all of a sudden, we were able to get into a bunch of apartment complexes. That works. I mean, I've seen it. I had to do a lot on that. But in Virginia, like, we didn't have a lot of lead time. That's putting it mildly. So we didn't have you kind of need at least 4 weeks to build out a team, to call all the management companies and vet them all. Which ones even have a policy where if we jump through enough hoops, we can get in, especially since we weren't actually a campaign. We were a PAC, and we were doing issue-based stuff. They just happened to super coordinate with, democratic principles, because $15 minimum wage, the right for women to control their internal organs, the little things. And so you need about 4 or 5 weeks to really create the call list, identify all the gated communities, and then begin pouring through them. And then you have to build out a very, very specific team of canvassers. And because of racism, they got to look a certain way, depending on the community they're walking into. Otherwise, you're just going to have to deal with cops. And that's just a whole bunch of nonsense. Plus, these people are working. This is their job. They don't want to get arrested doing their job, even though they're not breaking any laws. But it takes one bad apple in that gated community saying they're casing our neighborhood when we're not at all doing that. And then boom, police officers. So because of profiling and things of that nature, there's a lot of moving parts to that. And it sucks, but it doesn't make it any less of a problem. So, but yeah, we would have won that 5th seat, in my opinion, had we been able to get into those gated communities, because there were 9,000 doors easily in those gated. There were multiple gated communities. You might spot them on the map because they have one way in and a big golf course right next door. It's super easy. But yeah. So, as far as your answers, it's all women all day. This is Dobbs messaging 24/7. That's all that you saw on the television in Virginia. I guarantee it's all you've seen on the television in any of these states. And if you're running at state house, state senate, or congressional or U.S. Senate level, that's all you're doing, because it affects 52% of the population, plus anyone else that they have as a daughter or a sister or a mom or whatever. So you get a bunch of guys in that universe as well. And it's an issue, and women are dying in Texas because of it. And that's super real.
Okay. We've got another question for Texas. This Rose Blue lives here, and the city of Denton is tied to Northwest Texas. Ronnie Jackson, boo. Is still Burgess, and my senator is Cornyn. She has nowhere to call for help. I'd find any Democrat that's running against any of them and work for it.
Right. Somebody is running for state house up there.
There is.
Especially this cycle. They will have very little to no money. So let me put it this way. If you go knock on doors for them, each door that you knock on is base cost, assuming they hand you a door hanger to help you out and give you the VAN app, which will be an app that you can download on your phone, and it'll give you a targeted universe that you can go knock on.
So you're hitting a Democratic door.
Yeah, Democratic door. And depends on what they expanded their universe out to. Honestly, if you're a woman who's registered to vote in the last 24 months, they better be in that universe too. Every door you knock on, from a base campaign, if they ran the program themselves, cost is basically like a $4 donation. So if you knock on 100 doors and that sounds like a lot, it's really not. It's 5 hours of canvassing, and which you could break into like 2 weekends and call it, Right. So that's a $400 donation.
And also contact Colin Allred's people.
Oh, Colin Allred would love to have some canvassers in Denton. Please call Colin's race. They'll send you door hangers, I bet.
Oh yeah, they've got them.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, absolutely. And they would love to have canvassers in Denton, because you got to understand, Colin's running a different kind of race than anyone else. For one thing, he's running against Ted Cruz, and even the Republicans don't like Ted Cruz. So Colin is trying not to lose terribly in red counties, and then get the vote up in the blue counties. You just can't lose by 80% in those counties anymore. You got to cut that down. Mm-hmm. Mitigate the damage those counties, because it's not like Denton's different. Denton's a pretty real county now. You guys have a good population. I could Google it, but I'm pretty sure it's up there now, because Colin's way up there. Of course, Fort Worth and then Dallas County, of course, they're all huge. Those, in fact, they said by 2050, those 4 counties will have 90% of everyone who lives in Northeast Texas will live in those 4 counties by 2050. Mm-hmm. So your county's blowing up no matter what. And that statistics terrifies the hell out of Republicans.
Dallas, the pressure from Dallas County this is real local politics. Sorry to all the people in New Hampshire. But Dallas abuts Collin County, and Collin County used to be the bright red jewel in the Republican crown. And last city council races, they're nonpartisan, but half the people who won were leaning more towards democratic principles. And you have to understand, they don't have district. They're assigned a district, but they're voted on at large. So that meant the whole area had to vote for everybody that's on there. So still half of them made it into that seat, and they're not like they're clustered in a district like what we have in Dallas. So, and the pressure from Dallas, Collin County in a couple of years will no longer have at-large elections, because it's not a way to run a county that's getting compacted by people and becoming a major population center and has an enormous minority population.
And we're seeing that all over the country. In 2012, Seattle used to be at large city council. And in 2012, they changed that because they realized that all the city council members were clustered in one neighborhood, the really super wealthy neighborhood. And they made it, they districted their city council so that, and you had to live in the district. So now all of a sudden, those communities that didn't have roads being fixed or lights, in their neighborhoods for safety, all of a sudden now could get that because they had a voice and a vote. And yeah, the more that happens, you understand, city council candidates is kind of like a gateway candidacy to other seats, because there's a lot of mechanics and a learning curve to running for office. And that's why they hire people like me, because I can help you avoid like 30 mistakes that generally a new candidate will almost always make. And by avoiding those, you save a ton of money. I pay for myself in every campaign I've worked on. Just because, one mistake with postage, I paid for myself. 100%. My targeting pays for myself. Because had you not had me doing that, you would have done something, you would have mistargeted and spent a whole bunch of money that you didn't need to. So there's a learning curve. And once you run for city council, you go to state house or one of the state level races, and then you start really looking at the federal stuff, congressional and U.S. Senate, things of that nature. That's Colin Allred went from working with Obama's campaign to policy to Congress. And
No,
now
to State House. He did State House first.
did he do State House?
That's when he interviewed us to help run his
That's right.
campaign, and we told him
That's right.
he would do better to use a
Yeah,
different.
he skipped the municipal side.
Mm-hmm.
They went right into State House. And I'll tell you, there's a couple reasons why, like, for example, mayors of Dallas don't do so well when they go on to other offices. It's because you run a real city and you have to work with everyone. And in partisan primaries, there's a purity test sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And getting things done is second or third tier to how dare you work with these guys. But they're at the table. You have to work with them, you know? And that's why a lot of Republican mayors in Dallas can't go anywhere, because they have to work with the African-American community, Hispanic community, LGBTQ.
You've got everybody.
They're at the Pride Parade.
Mm-hmm.
That's an easy commercial for a Republican to run against that candidate in a Republican primary. It's super easy. Look at him. How can he? Does he represent what you believe? Of course not. So yeah,
this is a good mechanics question for you, sweetie. He's the only person I'll have on my show. I'll call sweetie. How is the best way to donate to a candidate but protect your own financial information?
Well, if you donate directly to a federal race that is a candidate, you will be on a Federal Election Commission report because it's law. They will have your address, your occupation, your employer, your first and last name. I think that's it.
That's it.
So if you don't want to be known, so what you do is you
contribute through a group.
Yeah, through a political action committee. All that dark money that Democrats are always complaining about. PACs can't coordinate with the campaign, but there are some PACs that you can guarantee are going to be working with Colin Allred. Now, there's a thing. So not many people know this. Texas is one of the highest donors to Democratic campaigns in the United States. We're either second or third, if not first. We're not first because California's first. And if you take all the Hollywood money out, we're first. I think that was the math I saw. So if we're not second, we're third. Doesn't really matter. Top three. But we're the top because New York right after us, right? But yet, where our candidates are woefully underfunded for the size state that they're operating in. And that's because we donate to Democratic campaigns outside our state through PACs or the DNC or the DSCC or the DCCC.
Or bundlers.
Because you understand, there's an ROI. I spoke about this on the other channel. To win the U.S. Senate seat in Texas, to really run in 18 counties that you really do have to run in, it's an insane amount of money. It's you would automatically be running the largest field program in the history of our country. Flat out. Under one campaign, under one umbrella, like that's paid canvassing, yeah, it'd be the largest by far. You'd knock on 4 or 5 million doors minimum. That's like the bare minimum you need. Like it would be better if it was between 6 and 8, but 4 to 5, and you stand a good chance. Your IDs will be solid. You will network the neighborhoods you need to. You went in 3 or 4 times. You'll be okay. But you know, the amount of infrastructure and personnel and data and everything that you need to run something like that. It's, let's say you want to do 5 million doors. Well, it's 5 million doors times probably somewhere between $6 and $8 a door, because it's not just the canvasser, it's the field director. It's the field director, the regional director, the county director, the office, any vans or vehicles, the insurance for all of the above. And that's just one piece of that county. And then you multiply that out by however you want to break up your county. So like when we were working with Obama in 07, 08, we broke the county into its 15 state house seats, because I always felt that keeping it local wherever in Dallas you were was probably the smartest move. Also, we were working with Excel from 2003 Office, and back then it could only hold 65,000 records, so which happened to be about the same size as a registered voter targeted universe for a state house seat in Dallas in 07, 08. We only had one state house seat that was bigger than that, so I had to put that on 2 sheets. So that was also part of logistics, making that work. Now Excel is like brilliant. It's like if I had had this Excel back then.
Oh God, yes.
Oh God,
you have no idea. But really, the basic answer for Elizabeth is
pick a local PAC.
Pick a local PAC, or call a candidate and ask who's supporting them.
They can't coordinate, so they may not be able to give you that information.
Oh,
so my thinking is that
I would give people that information.
You could go in, do some simple Googling. Any PAC with the word Texas in it, Progressive Texas something. Probably a good bet there. That money will stay in Texas. And sometimes these PACs will give you, how would you like your money spent kind of questions and things of that nature. And you can go and, because a lot of these CRMs are, they're database management systems that help coordinate money and votes and blah, blah, blah.
In the reproductive rights.
And they're able to triage that and say, this person wants to spend it on canvassing. Also, you can just say, hey, send me door hangers. I downloaded the Van app. I want to volunteer. They'll populate your map for you. You'll know exactly how many door hangers you need. Get that plus 10%, and then go out and canvass your precinct. And when you're done, say, I would like more door hangers. I'd like to canvass my precinct again. Every door you hit saves that campaign, if they're the ones running it, $4 to $6 a door. And over the next 2 or 3 months between now and November, if you did that, you could easily, as an aggregate, donate thousands of dollars to that campaign, and your name would never appear on any campaign finance report.
That's true. I got another one for you.
And it's a real, legit way to help them.
Right. I think Debbie Murcassel-Powell has a chance of beating Scott. That's the one running against Ron Scott in Florida.
I think because of Dobbs, everything's possible. I think that the polling is going to be pretty off this cycle because they're looking at likely voters. They're not looking at anyone who's registered to vote in the last 18 months that hasn't even had an opportunity. Maybe they participated in a primary, but they definitely don't have any.
Thank you, Gene.
They don't have any real election day. Like when they look at my account on the voter history, it's like he's a 9D voter because I voted in every Democratic primary forever. My friends, we actually looked him up. He's like a 15D voter. Well, if they registered to vote in the last 18 months, there's only one primary. They'd be a 1D. I'll tell you right now, most campaigns cut it off at 2D or more if they've got money. 3D if they're a little tight.
Rose Bloom, thank you very much. Well, and we've got one suggestion for Texas PAC. It's still going. Beto's powered by the people.
Oh, yeah, no, I love Beto. Beto, I met him when he was a congressman in 2012. I love Beto. He's actually probably one of my favorite candidates I've run in Texas. I thought he did a great job. He was 350,000 votes off when he ran against Ted Cruz in a non-presidential cycle, which is the closest anyone's ever come.
After the Secretary of State had struck, what was it? How many 100,000 people out of Houston?
Right. Oh, yeah, no. I mean, with a huge headwind, he got within 350,000 votes. And that's the thing, people. When the Republican Party knows that there's blood in the water, when they see this Dobbs data finally really do play out in a presidential cycle, every trick in the book. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at our election to stop up the works, make it harder to register to vote, disenfranchise as many human beings as humanly possible. Because so there's an evolution to controlling the vote, and they do it with gerrymandering. And a lot of you guys probably know a lot about gerrymandering because I talk about it quite a bit. Gerrymandering has packing and fracking. Those are the two ways you can gerrymander. Fracking is you tearing it apart. Packing is you kind of ghettoize the vote. Well, you first start out with you break up the vote. And that's where we've been really since the 90s. They've really just been cutting it up, cutting neighborhoods in half, breaking those neighborhoods down. The problem is the population's grown so much that they really can't do that anymore because a certain number of people have to live in a certain district, right? And they still want to maintain their rural districts. Well, even the chunk that they're pulling out of these blue counties are so populated versus the declining population of those rural counties that they're starting to lose footing. And that's why this last redistricting they just did, they went to packing, which is the last mathematical stage that can really make a huge difference. So they're ghettoizing our vote. Before in Travis County and Austin, it was like this big flower. There's all these districts that blew out from literally the Capitol steps.
Right in front of the state capitol.
Like right in front. And they would blow out from there. And now if you go back and look, they don't quite blow out as much because they're having to pull it in because they don't want to contaminate their districts where they think they have it, where they're, but you've got like the county, the I-35 corridor is statistically the Republicans' worst nightmare, in my opinion. Williamson County, Bell County,
I-35,
Waco.
Right. I-35.
Yeah, I-35 goes between Dallas and San Antonio.
Right. And right down the middle of the state.
Right down the middle of the state.
And then you got Houston to the east and El Paso to the west.
Right. Yeah. And El Paso's El Paso.
People now know more about Texas geography than they cared to. This is one I'm going to use this for the closing question. Okay. I want to thank Kathy. I want to thank I'm sorry, not right. Gino and Rose for their contributions. I really appreciate it. And question: do you know what is the cutoff date for purging voter records? She's in Ohio.
Oh, see, that's going to be a Google for you in Ohio. It's not something like they used to do it in July in Texas, right?
Yeah, but the best thing to do is there's Ballotpedia, which is the word Ballotpedia, like encyclopedia. If you go there, you can type in at the top what are the cutoff dates, and they can tell you everything. And then you can type in, right, and you can type in your state, and they will tell you all of the things that affect you. And trust me, they're playing big time games up in Arkansas right now because they got enough signatures and more than enough signatures to get to make them pass a state law that requires that abortion be a medical procedure. And now the legislature is actually going to re-meet so that Sarah Huckabee can change that. They're going to try, but they may not be able to do it because of the filing. Anyway, it's good in your own area to watch those things and see what's going on. What I do is I take a picture of my voter registration on my phone, and I know how to slide and get a picture of it, and it has a date stamp on it. And I always do that right after I was supposed to have been purged if I was going to be. They're not going to purge me. I'm 75 years old, and then you keep that. And then if anyone wants to say anything like you're not on the rolls, you can open up your phone and they can see the date stamp on it. And they're, depending on how crooked they really are. Although most poll workers are the most honest, lovely people. Even the ones that are hardcore Republicans here are lovely people just trying to do the job right.
And any job where you're dealing with the general public is not an easy gig.
Mm-hmm. And I've run the polls. Sean, unfortunately, had the experience as a small child hanging out at the polls, waiting for mom to finish. There's just really, they're just trying to do a good job. And what's made me really happy is after COVID, so many young people found out it's really a fun thing. You get a group of people together. For the most part, they park their party affiliations at the door. They may try to push them in, but then they're so outnumbered, they push them to the door. And we just all try to get the vote in. And so if you wanted to contribute another way, you could choose to maybe help at the polls in your area. They may need people.
They always need people. It's not even a May thing. They're going to need people.
But go to Ballotpedia. You can find all the rules. You can find any special. When Scott's not here to testify to this, but I had told him one time there was a referendum and he had no idea it was on his ballot. So ever since then, every time before he goes to vote, he checks to see if they're sneaking a referendum in on him, so he doesn't walk into the booth and run into it. Those are tips and tricks of surviving in the contemporary vote. Sean will have a website up. The company
we're putting it together right now.
Yeah. Right, the company he'd been working with had some website problems, so he's building his own. I appreciate all 100 plus of you that showed up today to witness Coffee on Sunday without Scott. I now know my purple hair is not the draw. I want to thank Sean for showing up here. I want to thank Gino for doing a wonderful job of helping moderate the thing, the chat with me, go look at this person. And I have a show tomorrow at 1:00. And it's a spiritual show. So if you're here for politics only, you lose, but I'll have it posted. And I have my show on Tuesday. It's going to be Dorothy Morgan, the astrologer. And I wrote her a note last week and I said, why is everything up in the sky going crazy? I said, or am I wrong? And she wrote me back, you are not wrong. So we decided we'd talk about it on Tuesday. And that'll be fun because that'll be a day into the Detroit knockout, whatever's going to be going on up there.
Oh, it's a whole lot of crazy.
Oh, it's going to be.
Yeah, no, it's going to be.
If you had anything to say in closing, Sean, what would you say to this charming audience who has given up on Sunday morning to come visit you?
If you're up on Sunday and you're listening to us and you've listened to us for an hour talk about campaigning and politics, really mostly just campaigning. I cannot stress to you enough, reach out to a local candidate, get some door hangers, go meet your neighbors, go talk. I can't speak for every state, but most states have VAN, and it's an app you can download. Go talk to your county party. They'll tell you which candidates are in your area, and just start knocking on doors. That you will make the change in the world you want to see if you do that.
Okay. And we had one last question that I got to show.
Oh, man.
Nancy, do you think that this counts towards the idea of the curse of Tecumseh since Trump was the president on 2020? That's the one where every president that's been on an even year has an assassination attempt. It goes back to Kennedy. It goes back to a bunch of them. If you go through your head, they tried to
I'm going right now.
They shot Reagan.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anyway, do I think this will count? I don't know. But if Tecumseh has any taste, yes. No.
You're not advocating. Well, okay, so I don't advocate. Yeah, I don't like any of this stuff, the shooting and all that jazz. I have one small comment. People like me tend to be on stage with candidates.
I've been on stage with candidates.
Very, very, very adamantly against anybody doing any stuff like this, regardless of party or affiliation. It's all bad news. All of it. It's
bad news for democracy. I mean,
absolutely, 100%. Also, it's bad news for people that they're just doing a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's not cool, and that's all I'm gonna say about that.
That's right. I mean, the last president that was assassinated was McKinley before I was in high school, and then it was Kennedy. And then think about what's happened since then. I mean, it gives bad people bad ideas.
It does.
We don't encourage that. We encourage them to go hang door hangers. Even if it's for the other side, that's better than shooting bullets.
Absolutely. Let's work out that energy.
And I want to thank everybody who came today. I want to thank Sean for being here. And I will talk to you guys. I've got a show Monday, Tuesday, Thursday. I finish the grid. I'm a busy little girl. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.